You're listening to the Homeownership podcast by Momentum Realty, real estate talk for buying, selling, and owning property.
Hey guys, Sean Patrick Maloney here, broker owner of Momentum Realty, located in Hanover, Massachusetts.
Welcome to episode 47, 5 post-holiday home seller tips. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Maloney. Thanks for joining me this week. I wanted to talk to you about getting ready to sell your home or actively selling your home during the holiday season. With so many different holidays upon us, some of them past, some of them in the future, there's a lot to do, a lot to think about, and I'm just going to go over 5 ways that you can better position your home to get sold in the new year. First off, let's talk about out with the old, in with the new. What does this mean? We're getting a lot of things during the holidays, always gifting to each other. We tend to see all the clutter. As we invite family members over and we use the house for the entire home versus just using the couple rooms we use when we're by ourselves, all these different things point out the thing that stands out the most, which is we have too much stuff. And as we're selling, we really need to stage the home to get it to look the best. So we really need to take the stuff and consolidate down to what we really need. And with so many new gifts and everything, it really comes down to a lot of the old stuff you're not going to need anymore. This is a great time to go and donate items, to put them into storage, box them up, get them ready for the next move, as well as just give them to other people that are in need. Sometimes you might have friends and family that can reuse them, or maybe you throw them up on Facebook Marketplace or something like that and sell them. But end of the day, you really want to clear out that space, and while you're indoors for the winter, it's really easy to notice if the place is getting cluttered. Next, let's talk about if you're stuck in the meantime, it's time for more projects. So a lot of people, they look at the time off that they get for a snow day and they think, okay, I'm going to lay in bed, I'm going to be lazy, and I'll get out there around noontime and clean up the snow. Well, that's fine and dandy. Sometimes it's actually a great time to get a project done. If you plan for it and you know you're going to be stuck in, you could do one of those painting projects, you could do an organizational project. You can look at it as time off from work to do a project, because when you have that whole day off, if you're not somebody who has a computer job where you can work remotely, it means you got the time to yourself. So it's a great time to get something done. And there's always little projects. Every project counts when it comes to trying to get ready to sell, especially if your house is active on the market. If your house is active on the market and it's not selling, one of the interesting things, people constantly just kind of have this idea that they need to alter prices or they need to do something different. But what they don't seem to be aware of is that they need to work in a forward motion. They need to make it look like the home is for sale or like the home is getting ready to be sold. Sometimes people sit so tight, they don't do anything, that it gives the person the impression that they're actually not ready to leave. So by starting to get the whole process done and getting these little projects done on snow days, as well as, the first one, which is getting rid of some of the old stuff and moving in the new, you're indicating to the person when you actually take these forward-moving progress steps that you're actually looking to sell the house, so keep that in mind. Next, let's talk about the snow and ice and the house being warm. So often in the wintertime, we get showings or open houses, and there's snow around that time of the year. Some of the sellers, they just kind of do the old job that they would normally do. They drive over the snow, and then they walk on the paths, and then they shovel a little bit after. You have to remember you're inviting guests over to the home, and when you're inviting guests over to the home, you got to worry about the insurance liability of having them slip and fall on the ice and snow. It's really important to make sure all your handrails are clear, the stairs, the walkways, the driveways, so that no matter who, if there's ramps, the ramps are clear. All those different places that people are going to be, you really want it clear. You can't just skip over shoveling the back deck during the winter, because you know that buyers are going to walk out and they're going to want to see what the backyard and the back deck looks like. I know it might mean a little extra work, but getting that snowblower running or getting that shovel going and clearing the paths around the pool area, making sure that there's a path out on the deck and that the stairwell is clear. Because again, you're inviting these guests onto your property and you are assuming some liability for them. When we work as real estate agents, during signing of the contracts, we actually, in our contract with you, have an agreement saying that you're responsible for the clearing of ice, snow, and all other hazards when inviting guests upon the property. So it's really important to remember, and also as real estate agents, they try not to get into snow and ice removal because of the fact that there's so much liability behind it if they take care of it. So most often they're going to say to you, please have the property ready for us to show up. So that's important. And then the other part of it with keeping the house warm, in the wintertime, When it's freezing cold out and you walk into a nice warm house, there's something comforting and soothing about it. But there's also something else going on. When a house is kept cold, a lot of people tend to believe that there's something wrong with it. And the reason being that I say something wrong with it, whether it be bad insulation, bad windows, bad doors, they think to themselves, if it's so expensive to heat this house that they keep it this cold, I can't even imagine. I don't want to even think about it. And I know it may be irrational thinking in your mind because it's like, oh, I'm just trying to save energy. But their concerns are, why are you inviting guests over and not having your house warm for them? Like, that's so incorrect. But we've run away from a lot of the old day standards of things like that, and people have things like Nest thermostats. So that's another thing you can do. You can go onto the Mass Save website, grab some of the electronic thermostats, and they have great rebates on them. And then there, when you have people coming for showings and stuff, you can remotely warm the house up. But just keep in mind that they're there as guests and you want them to feel comfortable, as well as you don't want them to think that your house is drafty, has cold windows or anything like that, because those are big dollar projects that have big energy concerns and have long-term costs. So just keep that in mind, as well as, like I said, if you go on the Mass Save website, not only can you get thermostats, but you can have an energy audit done, and that's a great way to find out different ways to save money on your energy, but also they tend to cover a lot of the costs of doing insulation, windows, different lighting fixtures, and things like that. So it might be a great way. Again, that's Mass Save. When you work your whole way through the winter, it's very easy to have that push for the spring to beat the market. So a lot of times people are all trying to sell in the springtime, which is great because it tends to excite the market. There tends to be a lot of buyers around. But the problem is when you come into the majority of the market, like when the majority of the market's already in and you join late, it tends to be tough to get noticed because you're in a whole grouping of houses saying, hey, look at me, hey, look at me, which means you're going to have to put more effort forward to stand out, and you're also going to have less ability to be the only game in town when it comes to people making offers and being able to be aggressive. So I always really say, if you're going from the holiday season and you think you're selling that year, it's really important for you to make sure that you reach out to your agent right away. Like right after the holiday, you got to reach out to them and start saying, hey, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about what projects I should do, any staging, any painting, any clearing out I should do, or if I should hit the market early. Getting their opinion, like when is the best way to beat the market and what is the best way? Is it to do work and come in that way, or is it to come in late with a lot of work needed? Agents are going to know the difference. Unfortunately, a lot of people watch these TV shows like HGTV stuff where they're able to see a house get transformed for 10 grand, so then they decide to take on the endeavor because they're going to make $100,000 extra dollars. But the reality is most of the time that's not true, and people spend money to end up losing money. I'm not saying people shouldn't spend money, but what you should do is talk to an industry professional before you spend money to make sure that what you're doing is giving 70 cents to get a dollar and not a dollar to get 70 cents, because if you're spending money to lose money just to sell, there's a better way of doing it, and that's called beating it on price and also being a little more aggressive with your marketing towards people that know that it's a fixer-upper. So we could talk about that. If anybody needs an agent, feel free to reach out to us here at Movementum Realty. We'd love to set you up with an agent that can help you understand how to beat the spring market. But it's definitely a subject you want to think about, because I can tell you every project always takes longer than people think they're going to take. We all get involved in a project and say, okay, it'll be done in a week, but then you open up the wall, you run into something, you got to talk with the electrical inspector, and next thing you know, it's 2 weeks, and because of that, the painters had to push back, and they couldn't fit you in for 3 weeks, and now you're 5 weeks off from one move, and it's just amazing how quick time can add up when you're working on houses. So make sure you have plans, make sure you have contingencies for what you want to do if they don't work out, to move on to the next thing. But the best thing to do is to involve a professional that can help you better understand the marketplace and get you set up for that. Then let's talk, not last but not least, this is an important step. These are just 5 tips. There's a lot that you can learn about actually performing a successful sale between post-holiday and spring. But let's just talk about one of the things that a lot of people miss. People miss a lot of times talking with their lender for their next place to call home. Whether it be you're working with a bank, a lender, a mortgage broker, any of those mortgage professionals, the most important thing they'll tell you is figuring out exactly how much you qualify for. So a lot of times people are selling their home, and whether they're moving to an apartment or they're moving to another house or they're moving to a condo, they got to know their costs moving forward. And in order to know their costs moving forward, they really need to speak with a lender, because a lot of people go off assumptions. They assume that if I sell for this price, or they assume that maybe, my lender, he knows me and I've, been at the same job 5 years and gotten some raises. I'll definitely qualify for more. All the different things people assume. I wouldn't do that. I would talk with the lender first because it can save you the embarrassment of putting your home on the market, putting in a suitable housing clause, and then never selling because you can't ever find suitable housing and you have to lie to everybody and say that you didn't find suitable housing, but the reality is you didn't have a suitable budget and you didn't check in ahead of time, which this is actually very true of a lot of times. And what happens is you got to think about this. So we live in a marketplace where you're able to put very little down, all the way down to 3.5%, which is a tiny little bit to put down on a house. That's only $3,500 per every $100,000. So we're talking about a minimal investment to get involved in housing at this point. Well, let's think about this. If you put your house up for sale for $400,000 and it really sells for $380,000 and it has a $20,000 price break, let's think if you're putting 20% down on a home, that's $20,000 per every $100,000. So that means by selling for $20,000 less than you thought you were going to sell for, you can now purchase at $100,000 less than you thought you could purchase for. So that's why these numbers are super crucial to go over, because I think a lot of people forget this. And I can be honest with you, it's one thing that I hate about the industry that I work within. There are a lot of agents out there that are willing to tell you your house is worth what you think it's worth. And I'm here telling you, I'm 100% for getting the most money for every property we possibly can, but getting the most money for every property does not mean listing it for the most money and praying to God that someone's willing to pay it. Sometimes it means leading the market by doing a high push for price. Other times it means letting the market lead you by doing a low price and allowing the market to bid it up. But again, that's a place where getting involved with a professional real estate person can actually help you. The agent can tell you from my past experiences, this is where we need to put the price. Far too often when we're talking with clients, they look at a property and we have the difference between a house and a home. So as a real estate pro, we go there, it's a house, it's a piece of land, it's an investment, it's a piece of property. We don't see the children on the swing set or the different things that people have seen over the years, whether it be a friend visiting, grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, whoever, all the different people that visit people, friends. We don't see that. We just see walls, we see wall colorings, we see types of countertops, and it's not that we're not sensitive people and we don't see all that, but when it comes to pricing, the market can only bear what it can bear. And that a lot of times comes out with when you see for sale by owners or different times where people are trying to do a list only into the MLS system. They really want to get the most money for their home because they love their home. And I can respect that because being a homesteader is great and putting a lot of work and effort and seeing those memories, it's hard to devalue. But at the same time, to get yourself out of there in the right amount of time, getting the most money, getting the best terms, all that, it really comes down to properly pricing and strategically marketing the property for what it is. And that's why I would say to you, the most important thing is really start talking with the lender, finish talking with your real estate agent, have the prices known, and really know where you're headed so that way there you know if you can do it or you can't, and you have a shut-off number and you have a number in mind where we're not going to be able to make the forward movement so we don't have this embarrassment of having to back out after spending 20 or 30 days dealing and doing the dance with somebody only to realize it can't happen. I hope this helps you with your selling of your homes. I think it's a really great year. 2020 is going to be a really, really good year for sellers. I think you're going to have a lot of actual equity, so I think it's a really important year to make a move. If you have any needs, please reach out to us here at Momentum Realty. We'd be happy to set you up with a real estate agent that can help you make this goal happen. Also, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast and tell your friends and family about it if you know anyone that could benefit from listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for listening to me this week. If you have any questions, feel free to PM me, DM me, text me, whatever works best, and I look forward to talking to you next week.